All right, we're now being joined by Dr. Robert Edwin Kelly, an American political analyst on inter-Korean affairs and professor of international relations at the National University in Busan in South Korea, and he's joining us live now. Dr. Kelly, thanks very much indeed for talking to us. And it's quite clear from those images, although undated and the location undisclosed, that North Korea is continuing to ramp up its nuclear program. How is South Korea viewing this and the latest provocations from Kim Jong Un?
Well, the South Korean government, along with most of its allies and much of the world, really, except for the biggest autocracies like China and Russia, most of the world rejects North Korea, the legitimacy of the North Korean nuclear program. That includes India, by the way. And so technically, legally, of course, by the UN sanctions regimes are not allowed to do this. In practice, that doesn't really stop them. Of course, it's difficult to police North Korea's behavior, but the South Korean government adheres to that UN standard that says that this program is illegal. South Korean government has said repeatedly, this government particularly has said repeatedly in its white papers that it will never accept North Korea as a nuclear weapons state. And so that leaves us in this kind of weird dilemma, right? Nobody's really quite sure what to do. We could attack North Korea and try to destroy those weapons, but that, of course, is hugely risky. It doesn't look like the North Koreans want to deal with us on some kind of arms control framework where we could see what they have and maybe they would agree to some limits. This regime in North Korea has said, the current Kim leader has said repeatedly in his 15 years now in power that he really wants to keep ramping up the program. So we're kind of stuck.
And these images released by North Korea certainly send out a message of provocation, or some sort of message at least. It will also suggest that North Korea has come a long way in its nuclear enrichment program, and not without presumably the help of countries like China and Russia.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the Chinese and Russians kind of all over the place on the North Korean issue. The Chinese used to actually think that North Korea with nuclear weapons would be so scary that they should, that they actually voted for the sanctions. The Russians used to think that too. A lot of the polarization over the Ukraine war has washed into the North Korean issue now, where 2 or 3 years ago, we, the Americans and the West, could sort of deal with the Chinese and the Russians on North Korea. Now all that has really frozen, and the Russians particularly have struck a major military deal with the North Koreans, and the Russians have just given up on the sanctions completely. I think the real problem for us is, what do we do? It's like you said, it's interesting that the North Koreans have actually taken us inside one of the facilities. We've never seen this before. I think this is why it's getting so much media attention. I mean, I think we all kind of assume they had these things, right? But now we're actually seeing it for the first time, where we don't really quite know where it is. That's obviously for operational security. But from what it looks like, the photography, it looks like the North Koreans have really dug in on this, right? They have a large facility. It seems to be a pretty spacious, modern facility. So it doesn't suggest in any way the North Koreans are sort of, working towards demobilizing or decommissioning. Instead, it's, full steam ahead, and nobody really knows. Like I said, I mean, we just don't really quite know what to do. We see these pictures and it's like, what do we do? And our options just aren't very good.
Yeah, the options remain limited. And of course, as you're saying, we don't know the exact location of this, but it could be Yongbyon Nuclear Research Facility, already known to the West, but it could be some other as well. It also begs the question, as you're saying, is the denuclearization in North Korea, unrealistic at this point then?
Yes, but I think we could probably get the North Koreans to agree to some kind of deal where maybe we could cap or limit them. I think rolling North Korea back to when it was not a nuclear weapon state, I think that ship has probably sailed. I mean, North Korea's had nuclear weapons since 2006. But we might be able to get the North Koreans to agree to something where we would actually have inspectors in there or cameras or something like that, and they would want something in return. This was ideally what the Trump diplomacy with the North Koreans 6-7 years ago was supposed to be about. Donald Trump really kind of didn't prepare for it and kind of dropped the ball, unfortunately. But I do think there is room for some kind of arms control deal. But, the North Koreans have to tell us a great deal about their program. And they've been really, really cagey about giving us information. Without any sense of what they have, it's really hard for us to make a counteroffer. And that's where things are kind of hanging right now, right? So again, like I said, we're sort of stuck.
Right, and a lot of things are up in the air at the moment, and of course, so we'll have to see what the new president in America brings along as far as dialogue and negotiation is concerned. Dr. Kelly, thanks very much indeed for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.